and welcome back to the journey of my author YouTube channel. This is my second video now, so I guess you could call it my sequel video. And I figured what better to talk about except sequels. And I also happened to read a bunch of sequels recently, so that worked out conveniently. And I have a weird thing for liking sequels, often better than the originals, especially in trilogies. I really go for the second books in trilogies. The Two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings book and film. I liked Well of Ascension better than The Final Empire. I liked Catching Fire better than Hunger Games. I liked Attack of the Clones. I think it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies ever made, and a lot of people will not be pleased with that, but what can you do? I thought it was a fun movie, and I even enjoyed Attack of the Clones. And I find sequels pretty fascinating because a lot of them get a lot of hate for being worse than the first book or even ruining the original story. But at the same time, a lot of stories, most of my favorite stories, would not be the same without their sequels. They're usually series. It's usually the sequels that build on them that really make those stories, those franchises, what they are. Sequels have a lot of potential that single standalone books don't have for developing characters and exploring themes, because you really get to ask what happens after that big adventure. What happens when they come home? When you've gone on this transformative journey, what do you do next? And I think that's why sequels really fascinate me, and why sometimes I even find them more interesting and more engaging than originals. So today I'm starting a small series, maybe it'll be a big series, about sequels, asking, is this sequel better than the original story? So if you enjoy this series, you'll have to let me know, because I'm not going to keep making these videos if nobody likes them, and I will keep making these videos if people do like them. So if you enjoy this topic, let me know in the comments. Let me know what sequels you want me to talk about, what series you think maybe the sequel is better than the original, or you can let me know about sequels that you absolutely hate, and we'll see if I happen to like them anyway, just because I'm really weird and I like sequels. The first sequel that I'm going to talk about in this series is Words of Radiance, the second book in the Stormlight Archive. I know I'm extremely late to the Stormlight Archive party. I'm usually late to parties, but I'm finally here. I'm finally catching up. I'm working on Oathbringer now. The first book in the series, The Way of Kings, is about a young soldier named Kaladin who becomes a slave, but he's determined to save the other slaves around him. And that looks completely impossible until he finds out that he has some magical powers, and those might finally make it possible for him to protect some of the people around him. That is a major oversimplification of Way of Kings. There are a lot of other characters and locations and dynamics and politics and backstories and world building and plot twists, but it's way more than I need to break down in this video. It's an 1100 page book or something. Very complicated, but that's kind of the main gist. If you're on my email list, and you have been on my email list for a few months, then you might remember that Way of Kings pretty much tied with Dune for my favorite read of 2021. So I definitely enjoyed it a lot and was very excited for Words of Radiance. Instead of focusing on Kaladin, its primary character is Shallan, who was a main character in book one, but she was kind of secondary to Kaladin, and I don't find myself enjoying her point of view as much, which is maybe because she's too much like me. I think maybe I relate a little too much to being an artsy, sheltered, naive, but not really innocent girl traveling around the world. Maybe that hits too close to home, I don't know, but her emotions just don't come across as strongly to me as like Kaladin's or Dalinar's or several of the other characters, really. Her backstory and her goals got really interesting in this book. Each one of the books in this series takes one of the major characters and essentially includes a short novel within a novel that's that character's backstory, that really digs into their past and how they became who they are in the current timeline. So that's really cool. I enjoyed that part for Shallan. I thought her arc was really well done. I just didn't emotionally connect to her as much. The plot is very full of epicness, though. I think there were even more iconic set piece scenes in Words of Radiance than in Way of Kings. There are storms and battles and assassins and flying and disguises and a bunch of plot twists. I would say Words of Radiance moved more quickly than Way of Kings. There were a few points in Way of Kings where I was like, okay, I'm ready for something else important to happen now. But in Words of Radiance, I felt like that fewer times. It felt more like it was fast paced. A lot more important things happened more closely together. I think part of that is because the characters' actions in book one have brought them to places where they have more authority, they have more opportunities to make choices, they can be more active, they're not as limited in scope. So I think that's why I found this plot more interesting than Way of Kings, maybe. I also laughed more during this book than Way of Kings. They both had funny moments, but the bridge cruise in this book left me rolling on the floor several times. Every time Rock opened his mouth, I was just ready for the laugh, and he did not disappoint pretty much every time. So, is Words of Radiance better than Way of Kings? Is this sequel better than the original? I think they're very close. It's pretty much a toss up for me. I would say I liked the plot of Words of Radiance better, but I liked the character side of Way of Kings better. I emotionally connected with Way of Kings more. I thought Kaladin's arc and even the arc that we see for Dalinar in Way of Kings was a little bit more, it felt more emotionally deep to me. But Words of Radiance on the plot side, and then of course it brought so much world building to the table, so many twists that really tied together the plot and the world building. So I would say they're a toss up. I definitely think that Words of Radiance lived up to Way of Kings, and it left me very excited for the rest of the series. So now it's time for a new feature that I want to try in these videos, featuring another thing that I love besides books, and that thing is t-shirts. I love t-shirts, especially very nerdy t-shirts, and especially comfy t-shirts and t-shirts that commemorate important experiences. So I want to start sharing with you some of my favorite t-shirts, and you can tell me in the comments all about your favorite t-shirts and what makes them so amazing. My first t-shirt of the week is my I Am a Follower Ascend Camp 2018 t-shirt. Ascend Camp is a teen camp that my church hosts, but dozens of churches from all over the country send kids to it. They had over 1,000 people at their last camp, I think. It was a really fun experience. That was my first full summer being at that church, so I went into it with like not a lot of close friends and not entirely sure that I wanted to do camp because I am not athletic. I am not really good at most camp activities, and I just wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. But I came out feeling like I had a lot of closer friends. It turned out to be a really good experience, and I enjoyed it a lot. A friend of mine designed this t-shirt. It's really comfy. I've washed it so many times now. It's what I wore to the Acropolis when I went to Athens, so that is almost as strong an experience associated with it as the original camp itself. So that is one of my favorite t-shirts. And now you can let me know what t-shirts make you happy, what t-shirts remind you of fun, transformative experiences that you've been through, and what journeys you got those t-shirts on. So share with me about that. And okay, I will sign off now. I will be back with a new sequel in my next video, and I will let you know if I think it is better than the original or not. So until then, thanks for journeying with me. Bye.